Do you know your constitutional rights? Our founding fathers died to give every American citizen freedom of speech, due process, freedom of assembly, and the freedom to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Rise, stand tall, be bold, and be grateful for your American heritage. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave, where everything is possible. And we are the people. Welcome back to We the People. Today we have David Nachman and Ludka Zimochuk back on the show from NPZ Law Group, both immigration attorneys, and they are going to be giving us some valuable information today based on the Biden administration's new immigration laws. So you want to watch the entire episode, folks. Welcome back, David and Ludka.
Thanks so much, Geeta.
Great. I'm really glad to have you. So let's continue. We were talking about some fascinating topics and we had a wealth of information here. So viewers are probably taking lots of notes, but I have some additional questions lined up for you for today. And we're going to open with the H-1B cap. So how well has the H-1B cap in 2022 FY performed? And what is the current trend?
Well, Geeta, it went pretty well. This is a second season where we had a new lottery system that requires registration, where employer first does the registration for a $10 fee, and it's online. It went pretty well, I think pretty smooth. We had a lot of registrations. I think
about 300,000.
Over 300,000,
yeah.
Which I think is probably the most we've had in the past few years. Just as a side note, we only have 65,000 H-1Bs available, plus 20,000 for U.S. master's level. So just imagine that we had over 300,000 applicants. So not a great chance for those that have a bachelor's degree, but it went pretty well.
And I think that one of the other things that's super important, Ludka, is for us to point out that there were two lotteries actually run. So they ran the first lottery. What you would do is you'd register in March. And so you actually get two bites at the apple, right? The first bite at the apple you get for a possible filing April 1st. And then what ended up happening is that they found out that there were a lot of H-1Bs that were still around. And so what they did is they ran a second lottery on the same registrants from March at end of July, beginning of August. And so a lot of folks were chosen in that second lottery, and we're still in the process of sort of working out from under that. Probably by the time that this is airing, we will have all those H-1Bs out the door, right?
Yeah, and many people are wondering how is it possible that there were H-1Bs available for summer, but what happened was some people chose not to use it. Either the applicants left back home, or they might have had several registrations for different companies, and that's how whoever didn't use the H-1B, it went back to the pool, and there was another lottery.
I think one of the other reasons why there was a lot of H-1Bs also could be because people took it upon themselves to file the H-1B and didn't fully understand the classification. And what ended up happening is when they went to a lawyer after they won, the lawyer would say, well, this person doesn't even qualify, so forget it, and they just let it go. And so then what ended up happening is that went back into the pool, and they were able to use it during the summer. So that sort of also gives a reason why it really pays to talk to a lawyer before you register to find out whether or not the individual is truly qualified or not for the H-1B to do the registration. I mean, yeah, it's only a $10 fee to register, but still you want to make sure that if you do win, you can actually file, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, is there going to be a new H-1B lottery based on wage next season?
There is planned that there's not going to be wage based lottery. So we were very nervous about it because it really looked like it's going to happen for this past season, but it's not going to happen.
So that was one of the initiatives by the Biden-Harris administration, was to take that Trump initiative offline. And it's kind of interesting because basically what Trump was trying to do was to create a a wage-geared H-1B, because the allegation is that H-1B non-immigrants displace U.S. workers, which, you know, is sort of, you know, it's in the media and we do hear about it, but it's really not something that's wholly true, because when we do H-1Bs, when Ludga and I are preparing H-1Bs, we do what are called labor condition applications. And the labor condition application is a document which talks about the federally mandated prevailing wage that the H-1B is going to be paid. And if the individual is not being paid the federally mandated prevailing wage, then you can't offer an H-1B. An employer cannot offer an H-1B to an individual. So, you know, this whole thing about H-1Bs displacing U.S. workers is sort of much ado about nothing.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for clearing that up. That's great to know. Okay. So moving on. What is covered under the new travel policy to the United States? And are there any updates on regarding the travel ban? That's an important question for viewers.
Yes, so there is a huge news, hopefully as of November 8th, that all the COVID-related travel bans will be lifted. So as of March, you know, for some countries, it's been a really long time, almost a year and a half, almost 2 years. Where visitors or some visa holders just couldn't travel to the United States, and all should be lifted in November, hopefully. But of course, they still need to provide negative COVID test and then vaccination. That will be required.
Sorry, so what countries are these? Are these the countries that the Trump administration placed a ban on?
So this is Brazil, China,
South Africa,
many European countries.
So it's COVID related. The COVID related ban, you mean?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, you can continue the list.
Yeah, so essentially what essentially the government has done, the Biden-Harris administration, is taking away the demographic ban and implementing rather a ban based on the individual, and saying if you want to travel, you have to have a vaccine, right? So they're making it individual geared as opposed to demographically geared, which
so
seems
is there
to make
a vaccine required for every individual who wants to travel to the United States, or only from specific countries, or what's the conclusion?
That will be for everyone.
Okay, so everyone who travels as a visitor is required to be vaccinated.
Correct. Plus negative test.
Okay.
Right. And actually the rules about the vaccines are that there are only certain vaccines that are permissible, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take a look at the, I think it's the CDC release, listed out the vaccines that are permissible vaccines for the purposes of consideration for travel.
Okay, now is there an exemption available under those categories as well, or not, for those visitors?
So we don't know yet because the final rule didn't come out yet. So we're going to learn soon, beginning of November.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, at the time of the airing probably of this program, we may have more guidance, but at least at this point in time, we're sort of on the edges of our seats as everyone else is. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. And right now, as of now, there's just still a ban for these countries.
There is still a travel ban, and what we are doing, we're just getting exceptions, NIE exceptions for people that need to enter the United States for some reason. So these are national interest exceptions.
Okay.
And I just want to supplement that, Geeta, by saying, you know, that Ludga and I are at this point in time, again, as of the taping of this program, are still telling people, yeah, go ahead and do those national interest exemptions, because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the government has already said that they were going to do away with these bans, and then it kept getting pushed out, as did, you know, what was going on the northern border. So you can never be sure. So in order to be sure that, you know, to have some insurance, you know, what we do is we're telling our clients, go ahead, do those NIEs. It's not a bad idea.
Okay. Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, how do some of the new immigration and law initiatives under the Biden administration impact international students?
That's a good question. For those that are coming for example, they're here as a tourist or in different status, and they're planning to study and they want to change the status to F1. There was a change recently that is a great one, where when an individual files for a change of status to F1, to a student status, they don't need to keep extending the underlying non-immigrant status. So a few years ago, there was a sudden policy change where they started denying F1 applications in the US, change of status applications, based on the fact that there was no underlying status, but it was very sudden. So now we are reverting back to that policy where it's not required. I mean, it's a good idea to do it, especially those with tourist visas, but you know, that's one of the flexibility that happened recently that is very welcome. Schools really like it because they don't need to worry about, you know, it costs students a lot of money. I mean, those that are applying for student visa to try to extend non-immigrant status to be able to get F1 status, which in some cases took 1 year. So right now it's taking months and months and months to be able to obtain an F1 visa status while in the United States. So that's one of the things.
And Geetha, the reality is, I think that the Biden-Harris administration respects the fact that one of the largest industries in the United States is international students. International students bring billions and billions of dollars to the United States. They pay tuition at rates, you know, well beyond those of, you know, local United States residents. And I think that and that was one of the reasons why I think the Biden administration realized that they are NIE, inherently NIE, and got them to the consulates and got them for their visas and allowed them to enter without having to get national interest exceptions separately. So, you know, what it is that, you know, from the 20,000-foot view, it is a tremendous, tremendous industry in the United States, and it needs to be respected. In addition to that, also, there is obviously a rekindled interest in OPT for international students and them being able to work for 1 full year following their full-time course of study, and then to use that as sort of a honeymoon period if they've studied in the science, technology, engineering, or mathematics areas, to then get an additional 2 years. And why would those 3 years be important? Well, what that does is it allows them to get 3 bites at the apple to try to get into the H-1B cycles, to be able to get the H-1B, and then once they have the H-1B, to move over to the green card. So, so what it is it's a sort of stepping stone method of allowing individuals who are educated here in the United States to stay, because what we found is that the Trump administration had put policies in place that where they were being educated here in the United States, we were educating excellent people, and then what were we doing? We were sending them back home. It was crazy. Doesn't make sense. So here we have policies in place where we have opportunities to really retain the highly skilled and highly educated folks that you know, that are here in the country.
And there was a period of time that we were worried that the OPT will be offline completely. There was a litigation regarding the OPT, which, you know, would, I've heard from many students that then they would rather go to Canada or Australia to go study and then get work permit, because what's the point? They're going to study here and they would not be able to use some type of training. So, you know, that's a good one, that OPT stays.
And Geetha, actually what Lutka said gets me up on my soapbox, because I'm just going to get up there for 1 minute and I'm going to say that when Lutka and I go to work, we're not just immigration lawyers. What we are is we are taking advantage of the worldwide brain drain. What we're doing is we're trying to present options to our clients to allow them to come to the United States, as opposed to going to other countries, which are also opening their doors to try to get those highly skilled and highly talented scientists, researchers, doctors, those skilled laborers. They want to get them, and they're obviously providing incentives. And so it's our job as immigration lawyers in the United States, serving that public, to offer them opportunities to be able to come to the United States and to come fast so they don't end up in those other countries.
Well, that's a great perspective and a great twist to it. Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, and that's true.
I'm off my soapbox, sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, David. Yeah, definitely some great answers and great thoughts. Very stimulating conversation. Good. Okay, so do you anticipate that there will be an increase in demand for the professional and specialty occupation work visas, work or visas in the upcoming March H-1B lottery?
It is very possible. It's just as we talked about OPTs, students, especially those on F1s, everyone is worried about the lottery. So we see increase every year because David was talking about STEM OPT, you know, that those students have additional 2 years. So they used to apply for H-1B in the last year. Now everyone is applying for H-1B right away because everyone is worried and scared. So each year we just see more and more applicants or registrations for the H-1B. So it is possible that it will be more people again.
And I think that one of the things, Geetha, that we've seen, obviously with COVID-19 and proximity challenges, was that the information technologies field has absolutely been booming. And to add to the information technologies boom, we also had the PPP loans that were given, you know, the payroll protection loans that were given out to businesses throughout the country to allow them to retain their workers, you know, as opposed to them going on to unemployment. And those PPP, interestingly, when they wrote the Secure Act, they have a provision in the Secure Act which specifically allows for PPP monies to be spent on information technologies to improve information technologies for small businesses. Well, actually all businesses that ended up taking those loans. So that, I think, also bolstered the information technologies area. So I think that I personally think, and just to address specifically the question of do I think there are going to be more H-1Bs, I think absolutely, because all the information technologies folks that I'm talking to are all talking about enhancing their staff and, you know, looking for additional skilled workers in nuanced areas to further enhance the value for their clients. So I think we're going to see even more than 300,000 this year. Just my humble opinion, though. Obviously, it's to be determined. That's one of those crystal ball questions, you know.
Oh, you mean you don't read a crystal ball?
Almost.
Not well.
I think you both are great at that. No, you definitely have a lot of great insight into the future of, or at least how things are going now and interpreting and expectations. So this is great. It's definitely a lot of information. Okay, so yeah, let's go into the next question. Or Ludka, did you have another comment on that previous question or?
No, the only thing I want to just add to it, to the H-1Bs, that believe it or not, I have a lot of companies that actually cannot find employees. So I was listening to David as he was saying that there are many people that feel that foreign nationals are taking jobs. But, you know, interestingly, then I have clients, companies, corporate companies that really have problem finding US workers, and they go outside, you know, and they're trying to bring very talented professionals from abroad. So
what kind of people are they looking for? Is this in the science field or?
Doctors, actually, I see a lot of, there's a demand for doctors, nurses, that's always been, is a shortage arena.
Medical and healthcare for sure, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But even architects, you would be surprised of different areas.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that part and parcel, you know, of the skill set that Ludwig's talking about also is the fact not just that they're extremely talented, but they're also bringing entrepreneurial spirit to the United States. And it's, you know, I always hate to say it, but I think that to a degree, the entrepreneurial spirit in our country is really, I don't want to say dead, but it's definitely stunted because there's just a different thought process than I think existed many, many years ago. And I think that foreign nationals bring an entrepreneurial spirit to our country and help develop jobs for US workers. So when Ludwig and I bring a scientist, or we bring a researcher, or we bring a doctor, what's amazing is that we check back with them in a couple of years and they have a lab which has 12 or 15 people. So, or more, and or have developed a project which has, you know, just unbelievable opportunities for US workers to join that lab or join that group. And so really what they're doing is they're again, it's building our nation's economic infrastructure. Our nation was built on immigrants. We are an immigrant nation. And the faster we come to terms with that, I think the better off we're going to be.
Well, just think about COVID vaccine and the tests. Many foreign nationals that we personally know, they
Right.
work. They work on COVID vaccines and the tests, even here in New Jersey. So,
yeah,
you know.
Specifically one of our clients, had developed the messenger RNA process, and so that was tremendous. And so here we go. Had they not developed that, where would the Moderna vaccine be today, right? So interesting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's great.
And that was a foreign national from Canada, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. See, this is a lot of great information coming out of this. Okay, well, thanks. So my last question for you is regarding, let's see here. So I'm given to understand that there is a new memorandum that was put out by the government with regards to prosecutorial discretion. Now, can you let us know what this is and whether the Biden-Harris administration has changed the immigration landscape with a new interpretation?
Sure. Well, let me just address that by saying that the priorities memo has been something that's been around for a long time. And actually, DACA finds its genesis in the issue of priorities, because the Dreamers were a group of people who the government decided were not high priorities. And that's why Obama, in the Rose Garden back in his, I believe it was his first term, made the announcement about DACA and Dreamers and why they should be allowed to stay. But that area morphed tremendously. Trump took the priorities memo, turned it around, and made it an enforcement-oriented program. And what happened when the Biden and Harris administration came in is that they turned it back around 180 degrees, and they gave priorities to, they're saying that the government should utilize its resources in a way that makes sense. And that is not to go after everyone who's out of status in the United States, because we can't possibly do that. But what we should do is focus our efforts on folks who are a danger to society, people who are not, folks who are basically dangerous.
They look at
safety issues.
Yeah. They look at it's a totality of all the factors. So they look at the applicant, how long do they live in the United States? What are the ties? Do they have any immigration violations, any criminal issues? Exactly. And then they also look at the health risk. If it's a woman, is the woman pregnant? So they're looking at everything all together to exercise this prosecutorial discretion. But, we used to have it a long time ago. So this is not something new, but we are reverting back to kind of Obama's, how it used to be, I would say around 2012. But as David mentioned, the government does not have unlimited resources, so they should use it on people that are national security threat, major criminals, and the government can exercise this prosecutorial discretion where they kind of can determine whether or not it's worth it to go after someone.
And the use of this prosecutorial discretion transcends all of the administrative agencies. It transcends USCIS, ICE, CBP, EOIR. It also transcends folks who are doing worksite enforcement. So individuals who are going out and doing worksite enforcement now have a tremendous amount of discretion. If they decide that an employer is doing the best they can to comply with the Immigration Reform and Control Act, then they can look the other way, and they can just say, well, it's educational, and not hit them for fines on every single piece of paper.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. We are out of time, and that was the last question. So is there anything else you'd like to briefly add, or how the viewers might be able to get in contact with you before we close?
Sure. Well, so we're located here in New Jersey. We have our corporate office in Ridgewood. We have a satellite office that's located in Raritan, which is right around the circle, the Princeton Circle, 202 and 206. And we also have affiliated offices in Canada and in India, and soon to be a new office in Monmouth County. So we're kind of going and growing. And, you know, we are a little different than other immigration law firms in the United States because we also offer Canadian immigration law. We have a Canadian immigration lawyer on our staff who assists individuals that in the event that we don't have US immigration law options, Lutka and I will try to also explore with our Canadian immigration lawyer opportunities to immigrate to Canada. And so that opens doors then when those folks want to come back down. So that's another way of viewing things. Lutka, do you want to add to that?
The best way to reach us is just visit our website, which is www.visaserve.com. Very simple.
Great. So visaserve.com. Thank you. Well, thank you, David, Lutka. It was a pleasure to host you here today.
Thank you so much, Geeta. Nice to see you again.
You too. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, and we will catch you next week.